Welcome to the Pennant Race episode of Diamond Kings, the Reading Between the Scenes YouTube baseball talk show brought to you by the Sports Kings Media Network. Can you believe there's just barely over 2 weeks of regular season baseball left? Magic numbers are trickling down to the single digits. The Angels and Orioles are getting close to clinching 10 games up. We've got tons of wild card news. We'll be talking it all today. My name is David Whitlock from Houston, Texas. My Astros are hot again under new manager Tom Lawless, although they actually got hot with Bo Porter before he left, winning in his last 2 games. Now they're 9-3. They'll be taking on Lorenzo's Angels this weekend. That's kind of a big series, but we'll be talking some other big series too. Joining me today is Lorenzo Mejia from Murrieta, California. How are you today, Lorenzo?
Hey, good morning, David. How's it going?
Going great. We're up nice and early this morning, especially there on the West Coast. And also joining me, one of our regular contributors is Leroy McConnell III, live from a firehouse in Dallas. How are you doing this morning, Leroy?
Doing pretty good. Just letting the world know that the Rangers are mathematically out of playoff thanks to the Angels this past weekend. No, since All-Star break weekend out. How y'all doing?
Great to have you. And one and a half of your eyes, you were telling us before the show that you're either in a boxing match or you got stung by a wasp. I'm not sure, but
The Wasps won, standing 8 count.
But he's playing through the pain because that's what we do here on Diamond Kings. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Speaking of facial injuries, last night there was a really horrific scene in Milwaukee where Giancarlo Stanton was digging into an at-bat, and the ball just trailed in on him. He was too far committed and got hit in the face. As of this morning, it looks like he has some facial fractures and dental work that needs to be done. No clear word on his prognosis for the rest of this season. I'd be surprised if he came back this season at all. The only blessing maybe that it's towards the end of the season and the Marlins are pretty much out of it. But we want to send our thoughts and prayers to him for a quick recovery. He's probably an NL MVP favorite. Being hit in the face is a scary thing. Did not look like there was any intent, but we'll start with Lorenzo. Did you see it? What were your thoughts on that play? Is there anything that baseball can do to prevent this type of thing, or is that just part of the game when you have a 90-mile-an-hour fastball thrown towards human beings?
Yeah, it was a really horrific thing to see. I saw him get hit, and then just afterwards, when they interviewed the pitcher, of course there was no intent there. It was not the right situation. But whenever you see stuff like that, I always think of, I think it was 1967, Angels, Red Sox, Tony C., young promising guy coming up, hit a lot of home runs, and after that his career was never the same. And what concerned me was they said with the Stanton injury is that it looked like he got his eye socket. And when you start messing with somebody's eye and a ball coming in like that, it'll, of course, it's going to change his physical mindset, but more importantly, it'll change his mental aspect, where he might be bailing on a breaking ball, he might be bailing on anything inside, and we don't want to see that happen. He's a young guy, a SoCal native, he's from the San Fernando Valley, and he's just somebody that he's a rising star, and hopefully it won't mess up his career.
Yeah, that's a good point on the longevity because it can. Tony Conigliaro here in Houston, one of our great prospects of the 80s, Dickie Thon, got hit by a pitch in the head. He had hit 20 home runs at the shortstop position in like 1982 or 83, and that was unheard of back then. And after that hit by pitch, his career is never the same either. Probably on the mental aspect of it, never recovered. Leroy, you saw the play. What were your thoughts and on the whole situation? Okay, did Leroy? Leroy might have dropped out on us. We'll have to get his thoughts in a minute. Okay. Well, we'll move on to the next subject, and that's kind of getting back to some of the pennant races on the flip side of success is a couple collapses going on. And a few weeks ago, we were sitting here talking that the Oakland A's or Anaheim, or I'm sorry, Los Angeles Angels, one or the other would win the division, the other would probably host the wild card. It's looking like the Oakland A's might not even make the playoffs. They've had a complete collapse ever since that ill-fated trade of Yoenis Cespedes. So we'll have to go back to Lorenzo. do you think that Oakland is even going to make the playoffs at this stage? They're still in a position to hold the wild card, but they certainly don't look like a team that could beat anybody right now.
You know, they're on a downslide right now. They're really struggling. And as far as the Cespedes trade, when that happened, everyone was praising it. Oh, it's a great deal. We can never go wrong. We're getting great pitching. But I think it had an effect on their team itself. And I was reading a stat. In the last 30 days, the Angels have gained like 13 games on the whole in the standings. Because about a month ago, they were 3 games back. And now the Angels are 10 games up, which is a crazy amount of games to make up in a little bit over a month. And the Cespedes trade, it just didn't work out for them this year. But they'll hold on to it, and they're still a team to watch in the playoffs. You never know what can happen, especially in a one-game playoff. And then in the divisional series, which is the 5-game best-of-5 series, it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to maintain their lead. But yeah, they'll still make it.
Still, I don't know. With 2 weeks left, I'm concerned. Depends on. It's obviously going to depend on what Seattle and Detroit, Kansas City do. I think you're right. I think they'll get in. I think they can't be this bad this long. There's too much talent on that team. It'll just depend upon whether they can circle the wagons and get pointed in the right direction. The other team that has had a collapse and basically was in first place in the National League Central the entire season up until about a week ago was the Milwaukee Brewers. They looked for a while best record in the National League. They were cruising. I think we've all had questions about them because players like Ryan Braun weren't performing at his previous levels. They were kind of doing a smoke and mirrors. They had some injuries to Aramis Ramirez, and they got through those. But what do you think, Lorenzo, about the NL Central? I mean, once again, the Cardinals are leading. Can the Brewers stage a comeback here, or maybe even steal a wild card?
I don't think they will. They're losing it right now. And I think with the Brewers, their whole staff and their whole roster, they were off to a good start, and it was an amazing year. It was a career year for most of the guys. When you see Francisco Rodriguez out there and he's throwing up saves after saves, you know it's not going to happen. You know it's going to keep going on forever. And this week he gave up a nasty blown save, and that just really killed their momentum going forward for the rest of the season. As far as the Brewers, though, I just don't see it happening. The NL Central is a great division because you have the Pirates in there, you have the Cardinals, and then, of course, you have the hopeless Cubs. But even the Cubs are showing some life with their new rookies that are coming up. So, yeah, NL Central, it's going to be a battle all the way to the end.
Look at the vagina donuts.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the Cubs because they've been without Anthony Rizzo as well, but playing well. Yeah, I think the Brewers are done. I don't see them making much of a move. Leroy, looks like you're back. You're 2 questions behind. First question, what do you think about the Giancarlo Stanton situation last night? It was obviously a nasty game. Anything else to add to that?
Well, it must have been something in the water yesterday because 14 batters were struck yesterday. The guy that took Carlos Stanton's spot, he got hit too.
Right.
And both of them got hit, and they were called strikes on them. What's his name? DeFryer? That how you pronounce it? The pitcher's name?
Fires, I think.
He was pitching a hell of a game yesterday, so I don't think it was an intent. And then I think, he was shook up just as much as everybody else was. It was unfortunate. Stan was having a hell of a year. It might mess with his psyche coming back because that is a traumatic injury that happened yesterday. He's probably done, and that might hurt him as far as the MVP. I mean, they may very well get to Kershaw now. So it was unfortunate. It scared the heck out of me. But, Jeter got hit, and he stayed in, but there's no telling what's going to happen to him. Today he might not play for a couple of games too, and he can't afford to be missing anything because this is it for him. What was the other question?
The other questions are, we talked a little bit about the Oakland A's collapse and the Brewers collapse. Do you think these two teams are pretty much done? Can they turn this around, make the playoffs?
I would say Oakland will have a better chance than Milwaukee. Milwaukee's toast. We all knew coming in that you knew St. Louis was going to make a run. And Pittsburgh's playing out of their mind right now. So they're not going to get up that second wild card. Milwaukee, they shot their wad in the first part, and it just blame Ryan Braun. I mean, he's been nowhere. He hasn't carried a team like he normally has. Carlos Gomez has really had a so-so year. As far as Oakland, what's wrong with Warrington? I mean, he's not pitching like he's supposed to. Let's just keep him in there. We all know that John Carl, I mean, Festus was the reason why they're having this downfall. I didn't believe he was that good, but you know, it's amazing how one person could change the whole scenery. And Seattle, you still need to watch out for Seattle. Seattle will beat up on Oakland as well. So right now it's Kansas City, Detroit, and then possible Seattle for that last spot. Oakland, I think if they're down to a one-game playoff, they have Lester. That's the only thing that'll keep them there. But outside Lester, Sonny Gray, he's not doing anything. They shot their wad also last week with Los Angeles. Those 6 games. You know, this is the wrong time to be falling on your face. And if they did make it, they'd probably be, I don't know, they'd be worn out unless Lester pitched that one game. After that, they're not the best team.
Now, the whole American League, the whole playoffs, it's looking to me like it's going to be the Angels and everybody else. I mean, Baltimore looks good, but you're just not convinced they can win long series with that pitching. And then Detroit's been scuffling. They could get hot and be a team that could compete, but I think if Oakland can get in, I think they have as good a chance as anybody. But the Angels got to cool off at some point because they're just taking.
And we thought they'd be in trouble because they lost their ace. We thought they were going to be in trouble.
They lost their ace and got better. I mean, didn't get better, but they all bucked up and next man up and stepped up. While Oakland still hasn't. The chemistry's not there. It's tough to say. So we'll stay on the West Coast. There's a couple of really, really big playoff series this weekend, and this Friday, Saturday, Sunday. One of them is the National League West. Los Angeles is going to San Francisco. These two teams, these teams have been battling since they both were in New York, year after year, big rivals. This year is no exception. The Giants, I think, are trailing by a game or two. They're probably going to need to win the series because if they lose it, they'll be a little bit farther behind. What are each of y'all's predictions on this series? And we'll start with Lorenzo. Oh, you're muted. You got to unmute.
Doesn't see it, does it?
Oh,
There he is.
sorry about that. Okay. So, like I was saying, the Giants will take 2 out of 3 games of the series, and I really want to see the Giants overtake the Dodgers. People are already talking about a freeway World Series, and if that happens, it'll be a horrible thing. I don't want to see that happen
Why is that
because,
horrible?
unfortunately, I don't want to see that happen. Unfortunately, the Dodgers will win if they do play in a freeway series, and I don't want to see that. The fans here, there's a lot more Dodgers fans than there are Angel fans out here, and if that happens, Southern California will come to a halt. It won't be a good thing. We'll see violence. I really think we would if we saw that, if that actually did happen in the freeway series. Angel Stadium will get overrun by Dodgers fans because there's a lot more of them, and they are more passionate. I'll give them that. They're a lot more passionate, and they roll deep when they go to the games. Even in the freeway series before it's the last pregame, the last exhibition series of the season in the preseason, those games are sold out. Every one of those games are sold out. You have 45,000 people at Angel Stadium, 55,000 people at Dodger Stadium, and the stadium is covered in a sea of blue. So I don't want to see it happening. So hopefully Giants will take 2 out of 3, make it closer. And the way I see it is if the Dodgers don't make the playoffs or if they don't even make the World Series, Don Mattingly will be out as manager because he's been on the hot seat for over 2 or 3 years now. And every year they keep saying, if they don't do anything this season, he's going to be out. Well, this season, if they really don't, he will be out. They'll get somebody else in there that can hopefully manage the team to a World Series.
Yeah, he's got some managing challenges. They were about ready to run him out of town last year. Then they got hot in the second half, got within one series of the World Series. But managing that Puig situation, all those outfielders, trying to get everybody playing time, had to manage through some injuries, but I mean that all-star staff, he's got an ace every day. So you figure they should be in that National League Championship Series at a minimum, and probably should be in the World Series, given that the rest of the National League, there's no real super giants. There's some good teams, but Leroy, what are your thoughts on the Dodgers Giants? Who's going to win the series? Who's going to make the playoffs?
Well, the Giants have the experience right now. They're the champs. They know how to win. They know how to win when crunch time. I'm not understanding why Manley's not giving Puig some time off. That doesn't make any sense to me. This is a toss-em-up this weekend. I mean, Crawford's playing some baseball. I mean, he is playing MVP ball right now. Matt Kemp is hitting the ball well. Got D. Gordon. Has he been hurt? He's just been getting days off. I don't understand. I saw him off the other day. I didn't understand why he was playing. But their meat potatoes are starting to hit the ball. Gonzalez is still driving in runs. Puig needs a day off. I don't know if they're allowed to rest him, but he needs a day off. The pitching matchup is going to be excellent. Buster Posey, good grief. I mean, he is incredible. That lineup is hitting the ball just as well as the Angels. Now, you talk about the Freeway Series. Everybody wants to talk about them, but you got to remember you could possibly have out east. You could have Baltimore and Washington as well. So, what they call it, the I-95 series, whatever.
Beltway series.
That'd be good for baseball anywhere it goes because we want some rivalry. We don't want teams to like one another. I like to see LA versus LA. I want to see it get ugly. There's nothing wrong with that. It's going to get ugly this weekend because we know San Francisco and the Dodgers don't like one another. But the pitching matchup will be exciting out there. But what are they playing? San Francisco this weekend? It's going to be exciting. This will be the series to watch because San Francisco's coming for blood. They know that's their division to take, and we'll see if they can do it.
You mentioned the Baltimore and Washington, and I'm like, there are people go the East Coast bias all over again. It's always about the East Coast. You got to give the West Coast some love out here. It's all with Giants, Angels.
The West Coast, San Francisco's winning it. Shoot, they win again. I mean, it's a dynasty pretty much. They win another World Series. It's a dynasty.
Major League Baseball does not want to see the Giants in the World Series again. With the Giants there, they get record low ratings. It's a West Coast thing, and ideally, Major League Baseball wants to see some East Coast teams. If you see Baltimore or Washington, I wouldn't even think they would want Toronto in there over the Angels or the Giants. Got the East Coast cities, more people out there, get better ratings.
All your LA teams got all the big names. You got Pujols, you got Mike Trout. You got big names. People would love to see them.
Everybody wants to see Trout. I certainly agree. I was going to run through the pitching matchups for this Dodgers series because it was pitching stacked on both sides. Today, Friday, you've got Ryu and Bumgarner. Tomorrow, Saturday, you've got Greinke and Hudson. And then the big Sunday matchup, the big lefty Kershaw comes out. So against Pettit.
Yeah. Sunday night baseball.
So you've got, was it Yusmeiro Petit who had that long streak of scoreless innings? He's going to have to do something like that against Kershaw. So the Giants really need to get at least one of the first two games, but they need to get the first two games facing Kershaw on Sunday.
If you want to hear a media nightmare, let the Royals get in. No one wants to see Kansas City do anything. Trust me.
You not get a nice little Royals Pirates World Series? That would be awesome.
You know what? Outside of us, no one can name one position player on the Royals. Not one.
Wait, Alex Gordon at least. All right, we got to move on to the next big series on the West Coast, and that's more of that wild card battle. We talked about the Oakland A's earlier, and they are going to be playing in Seattle. And Seattle's kind of a hungry team, and they just got beat by the Astros their last two games, I think it was. The only game they won that series was when Felix pitched. But is this the time? Does the winner of this series put their stake in that final wild card spot? And we'll start with Leroy this time.
Well, I mean, what is their game out of
Seattle trails Oakland by a game and a half. Let's see.
In that case, I would say that Seattle would have the upper hand. Oakland, these last two games against Chicago, I mean, those game-winning losses, that was devastating. 2 nights ago when they hit the game-winning home run, and then last night, a 1-0 loss. I mean, that's devastating. I mean,
Yeah, it's Chris Sale pitching, but still.
cannot afford to lose to teams who have nothing to do with the playoffs. Chicago's a bad team right now. And you cannot ill afford to lose to sub-500 teams. So, Seattle's a dangerous team. I think they're going to take it this weekend.
Yeah, both teams are offensively challenged where you've got neither of them are scoring a lot of runs, but both of them have good pitching unless they don't. And a big part of that Oakland collapse has been Sean Doolittle's injury at the back end of that rotation. The Astros stole a couple of games from them late when they played this last week. They don't have that closer in the back, but everybody else moves out of their role. And Seattle they can't score runs very much either. Lorenzo, our West Coast man, what do you think about this big West Coast series?
The A's will probably win 2 out of 3 when they play this weekend. Seattle, I think fan support is a big deal, and Seattle's just not getting the fan support right now. A couple games ago, they had 11,000 people at a game. Granted, it was a weekday night, but still 11,000 people is not good. The Seattle's more invested in the Seahawks right now. Everyone's jumped on the Seahawks bandwagon, and right now they're just not getting the support that they need. And yeah, so 2 out of 3 going to Oakland, and Oakland will solidify their place in the playoff standings.
Yeah, and then in between those two teams, they're only a game and a half apart. In between those two teams is Detroit, which is a game behind Oakland and half a game ahead of Seattle. So there's your 3 teams all battling, and of course Detroit and Kansas City could flip-flop as they battle. They play a big series in Kansas City next week, so that'll be one to watch as well. Gotta love this time of year where, especially with the way that they set up the divisions, that you play 18 to 20 games within your division, you end up with these great matchups. That basically are going to decide the division on the wild card.
Detroit scares me. Detroit scares me bad. That rotation that they have, if you look at their rotation, even their number 4 starter is better than the Angels' ace, and that's just scary right now. Because you got Sanchez, you got Scherzer, you got even Verlander, who's having an off season, but maybe he just looks like Kate Upton, and then he'll be like back to normal. That's all he really needs to do. So yeah, that rotation is just scary.
I could enter a lot of comments about things Kate Upton could do to help Verlander, but this is a family show, so we'll move on to the next subject. One of the things that we've been watching all year is the ambiguity of the catcher's blocking the plate rule. I would say of the 2 things that baseball implemented this year, the instant replay, expanded replay, and then the catcher's rule. The expanded instant replay has typically worked very well. Most of the decisions came quickly and were the right call. And then you've got this catcher's rule where you're seeing the same play side by side on video, where one's called safe and then one's called out, and it's usually the on-field umpire seems to be getting it right. They go to New York, and then New York overturns. So it says, "Oh no, the catcher was blocking it, even though he has the ball." There was no real change to the rule, but Joe Torre issued a statement that the correct interpretation of the rule is that if the catcher has the ball before the runner, appreciably before the runner is there, that there should not be called blocking of the plate. Real quickly, what are you guys' thoughts on this rule, particularly in the postseason? Do you think that clarification was enough? Do you think they should scrap the rule, or it's obviously for safety purposes? And we'll start with Lorenzo this time.
I'm in favor of the rule. After seeing the Buster Posey injury, we don't want to see a star go down like that, but there has to be some clarification. Because to your point, yes, you see a play and you think it's pretty obvious what they're going to call, and all of a sudden they say he didn't have a clear path or he didn't have the ball. So hopefully it won't make a difference going forward in the postseason, because that does happen if somebody loses a series or even a game based on that rule, on the ambiguity of the rule. It's going to be a bad thing for baseball. And I know player safety is a big deal, but we got to make sure that we can that everyone knows how to follow the rules. Or what they could do is just go to old school slow pitch softball rules, where you put a line, and if somebody gets there, everything's a force play at home because they don't want any contact. You could always do that if you wanted to.
Yeah, it's a conundrum, because the play at the plate is one of the most exciting in baseball. Certainly, when I go to games and you see it developing, you see that guy break off second base, he's rounding third, the outfielder's coming up with the ball. you want to see. I don't want to see the collision violence. I just want to see the close play. I want to see if the outfielder can execute the throw, hit the cutoff man, get it to the plate in time. Watch that catcher try to grab, place the tag, and that's all good. And when it's executed well, there doesn't need to be a collision. But they've overdid it a little bit, in my opinion. Leroy, have you seen these plays? What are your thoughts on the rule?
I have to agree with the rule has helped minimize any collisions. That's the only thing the rule has done, which is a good thing because we haven't had any major injuries. But it does not make any sense that if I'm holding the ball and I'm at the home plate and I'm the catcher, I'm waiting for you to slide to do whatever you got to do, and I tag you, and you're safe because I'm so-called interfering. It makes no sense. If that's the case, then you should have more guys go ahead and steal home because they're automatically interfering with the play. So you might as well steal home. You won't be called out. Needs to be clarified. Needs to be adjusted, tweaked, and everybody has to be on the same page because this is Bud Selig we're talking about, and everything he does, seems to get smashed back in his face. So you have it where it's a postseason game where this rule is going to affect the final score in the playoff game, and then it's going to be some cry. And it probably should happen because this is a Bud Selig. He's over this whole thing. So we got to have some controversy before he leaves anyway. So fix it somehow, or get rid of it. I think right now catchers and the runners, they kind of know that we're not out there to hurt one another. I would say almost get rid of it. So therefore, you cannot afford to make that mess up a play at the plate. And we're talking about a playoff game coming up, and it's important that we make sure everything goes right. So I say get rid of it. Everyone knows it's causing about the collision. So you've done that. Get rid of it. Let them play some baseball.
Yeah. The problem I see with getting rid of it is then if there's no rule in place, then suddenly if you're the runner, you might be accused by your team of not being aggressive enough to try to knock that ball out. Like I think the cooler heads could prevail. The runners, hey, look, we don't want to hurt anybody. We won't collide with the catcher. Catcher, you let us some room to the plate. It's all good. But then if you don't try to knock the ball out, then you're not really trying for your team. So in general, I think the principle of the rule's good. When I've seen it executed right, I see the catcher positioned well. But to think about what the catcher has to do, which is get rid of his mask, stand up, look to the outfield, look where his feet are, watch the ball, hit another guy, bounce, catch. It's a lot of things to do. And sometimes, their foot's a little bit in the line. So I think you kind of have to use some common sense where you look and say, hey, you know what, he was going to be out. There was no question. Or, you know what, he didn't have a path to the plate and the catcher didn't have the ball yet. You got to award him home plate. And I think they'll get it right. I hope it doesn't come to be a big run in the playoffs because the playoffs are usually 1 or 2 run games. They're typically low scoring. Every run matters. You see a lot of that small ball in play. So we'll see how it plays out.
Let me ask something. Have we had one incident, have anybody recognized one incident where the catcher interfered and they didn't have the ball? It seems like they've had the ball every time, and they've tried to make the play, try to get the guy out, and it was a foul. I understand if you don't have the ball and the catcher's doing that. But it seems like every time we've had an issue, the catcher's had the ball. I mean, what is he supposed to do? Actually, you have to make a tag.
Yeah, he has to stand to the side.
He's going toward the plate, so I don't understand the big cry, but it seems like every time, every play at the plate gets reviewed, every single time.
The closest I've seen is if the ball's kind of getting there about the time of the slide, where he's squeezing the ball about the time the guy's starting a slide, and that's where they'll go ahead and rule him safe if he was blocking. I haven't seen very many where he didn't have the ball. I think many times the catchers know to just get out of the way at that point. Of course, we may not see those places. We only see the controversial ones that are played over and over again. So we'll move on to our final subject of the day, and the New York Yankees look like they're on life support for the playoffs. They're an outsider at best. We already talked about 3 strong teams for the wild card. The Yankees are, something like. Let me check the standings real quick. They're 4 games behind the wild card. So, and they've got 3 teams. They got Toronto, Cleveland, Seattle, all between them. Detroit and Oakland. So they've got a lot of work to do, and of course that means that Derek Jeter's career may come to a conclusion earlier than later. It would have been great to see him in the playoffs. He got hit by a pitch last night, as Leroy talked about, so he could even be out for this weekend series. It was on the elbow. You never know how that's going to expand or get swollen. But what are your thoughts on this final Jeter tour? We're down to the final 2 weeks. His last series is in Boston. A lot of tickets sold for that. Is his last game going to be there? Is he going to do like Rivera and have his last game in Yankee Stadium? A lot of questions, and as if the media hasn't focused on him enough this year, it's going to be the Jeter watch every night, last at-bats, tipping his hat. And since Lorenzo loves the East Coast bias, we'll start with Lorenzo this time. What do you think? What are your thoughts on Jeter in this final couple weeks?
It's going to be exciting to see. The nice thing about Jeter is that he's never had any issues. He's never had any conflict in his career. He's always been a great teammate, a great player, and he's been the face of the Yankees since, '97, I think it is when he came up. So it's nice to see him that he's going to do well. I see him after his career's over. He'll be an endorser of a lot of products, and he'll always continue to be part of the Yankees organization, which is great to see. So Jeter, wish him the best of luck, and hopefully he'll end his career on a high note. And hopefully his last game won't be because that he got hit in the elbow. We don't want to see that. We want to see him go out on his terms, last game of the season, hopefully in Boston, and that'll be the end of his great career.
Yeah, I definitely think he's got to play in Boston the way they played it out. And they've always had, they had that commercial where they fans in Boston get the cap to him. They got a mad mutual respect for Jeter there. Of course, the hatred between the two teams, they recognize what he's done, and they've won some World Championships along the way, too. They've won some big games. The Yankees have won some big games. So it'll be interesting. That's going to be one of those, hey, you got to be in front of your TV during that last game when he's pulled out. I remember, last year, we remember when it happened with Rivera. And then what happened with Andy Pettitte, he happened to pitch in Houston that weekend. And, of course, he's from Deer Park, near here, not too far from Minute Maid Park. So that kind of was appropriate that he had his final game. And he shut the Astros down big time in his final start. Leroy, what do you think about the Jeter and his legacy and how it's going to play out these 2 weeks?
He's the ultimate professional. He's a gracious winner. Of course, he reminds you of the Maggios. Classy guy. He will bow out gracefully. Yankees aren't going to make it. 17 games left. It won't happen. I don't have a hat on, but I'll tip today. If I'm a Yankee fan, if I can see him in person, take a lot of photos, take a lot of pictures. Because, this is it for him. And I think he'll be fine with that. He's a gracious winner, and he'll bow out graciously. So it was good to have him. We'll be looking for the next ambassador of baseball. Maybe you got Trout out there in Los Angeles, but fortunate, and I guess we're all fortunate that we were able to witness him since I think it was '96. But he's been a class act, and I'm glad I was able to watch him. Not a Yankee fan, but definitely was a Jeter fan.
Yeah, here in Houston, I didn't get a chance to see him play back in the old days when we were in the National League and even before interleague play. In fact, when interleague play was introduced, the Yankees were the last team to come to Houston. I think they didn't come until like 2006 or 7. I did see him in the 2004 All-Star game, caught some batting practice, and I remember him hitting one kind of over the railroad tracks, and I was like, wow, there's Derek Jeter, hitting for power. Batting practice, yeah, but here he is live and in person, and then getting to see him play a little bit in interleague, and then they were the opening series for the Astros this year, and of course the Astros kind of kicked off the farewell tour with the ceremonies and all that type stuff, and so we got to say goodbye to Jeter that way. So speaking of saying goodbye, I got to say goodbye to my partners. I want to thank Leroy and Lorenzo for getting up nice and early on this Friday morning. Leroy from the firehouse with one eye. Lorenzo at 5 o'clock in the morning there on the West Coast. You guys are great as always, and we will see you all next time on Diamond King.